So today I'm working on building a few study models of the two different options that we're going with. And the scale that I've chosen to work at is 3/32 scale. And that's a good scale because it's not too large where it's gonna take a long time to build, but it's not too small where you're not gonna be able to show any detail. So first I'm gonna build the site. And when I'm gonna build the site, I'm gonna start with this cardboard base, this thick cardboard base, and I'm gonna use another piece of this cardboard. So that this was just a long piece of cardboard that I had, and I cut it to roughly 200 feet long. The site is much larger than that, but I know that the area that I'm gonna be building in is gonna be sort of within this 200-foot long section. So I'm just gonna use the leftover piece as a little base to build that up. Makes it easier to grab onto the model. And then I'm gonna build my site layers, my site contours on top of that. So next I have this roll of cork, and that's what I'm gonna be using to build up the topography. And it just so turns out that the roll of cork is almost twice as wide as our site, so I should be able to get 2 strips out of this. Again, this is a study model, does not need to be perfect. Some people like to plot out the site plan, the grading plan, and use that to trace and cut the grades. Since this is just a study model and we're not trying to be exact, what I'm just gonna do is I have my grading plan up on the screen behind me, and I can look at the screen behind me, and I can, take some measurements off that file, and I'm just going to sort of freehand this because it's just a study model and it doesn't need to be exact, and you could spend all the time in the world trying to get the grades exact, and that's not the point of this exercise. The point of building a study model is to explore design possibilities. So I'm just going to do my best to translate the grades here. And we're gonna do that for each of the layers as we go up, and then we're gonna cut them out. Now, when you go to glue the layers of the topography, I am not a fan of hot glue, but this is the only time I really use it is when I'm gluing with cork. Cork is a real porous material, so a lot of times the water-based glues don't work too well. So this is the only time I do use hot glue. But generally, I'm not really a fan of hot glue because, it just sort of gets all over the place. The other thing about hot glue is it sticks really quickly, so you got to make sure that you're sort of lined up. And then one of the things I like to do at the ends here where the pieces get small, and they tend to curl up, so I take these little pins and I'll stick them down through the cork. Just kind of helps hold that in place. And there's our contour model. Okay, so I've cut out some of the materials that I'm going to use to create the walls. And since this is a study model, we're just going to be really loose about it and just use approximate sizes and scales, and we're just going to see where the model takes us. The goal here with study models is not to build the most accurate model possible or the most refined model possible. The goal is to build quickly and to explore the ideas quickly, just as you would in a sketch drawing. I like using the tacky glue for this because not only does it dry clear, but it dries quickly as compared to Elmer's. I'm not a big fan of using Elmer's for model making because it's a little bit too liquidy and it takes a little bit too long to dry, but this tacky glue is great. Just gonna add these wooden pieces in here on this glass just to represent some sort of mullion pattern. Again, we're not looking for something exact. We just want to be representative of what the materials will be. Some of my favorite materials to use are these micro basswood pieces. So one of the things I really enjoy about building models is the feedback that you get from crafting the forms and seeing how it looks in 3 dimensions. Yes, you can do this with computer modeling, but I still like to build physical models because it allows me to experiment quickly. So when I originally started working on this concept or sketch model for option number 1, I was envisioning this form that grew out of the site and focused and enlarged in both width and in height as your view is being directed towards the pond down the hill. And so I pictured this volume sort of growing out like that with this glass enclosed breakfast nook coming out of the side. As I was working on this model for this portion, this is just the living room, kitchen, dining room area, the scale of it did not feel right to me. It felt like it was too large of a volume for the spaces, and I wanted a more human scale. So I stopped working on this, and then I moved on to this layout. So this takes the same, essentially the same footprint, essentially the same height, but it breaks the volume down into this lower zone over here where the breakfast nook is, and then this higher zone. This accomplishes a couple of key things. Number 1, it's a more human scale along the path that people are going to be walking on. Number 2, the double height roof allows for clear story windows to be installed along sort of that southeasterly facing facade, which will allow the living room and kitchen area to be flooded with natural light from above. And number 3, the portion of the roof that's angled can be a great spot to mount photovoltaic panels, which you don't get with this larger volume. And so what I'm going to do here, this is a sort of a completed sketch model of that living room, kitchen, dining room area. We still have to build the primary suite, we still have to build the garage, and then we have to build the sort of guest area slash office, which is, you know, if you remember the sketch plan, it's a separate volume with a courtyard in between. So here we have the start of the bedroom volume. You can see that the roof slope is going to match the roof slope of the living room, and the primary suite is going to extend out of the volume with some clear story windows right here. And then this zone right here is going to be sort of the circulation corridor between the garage volume and the kitchen area when it gets assembled, something like this. And then the main entry to the house is going to be in between that master suite and this main volume. So something like that, still working through it. I want to do something on this circulation path that filters in the natural light and really floods that corridor with natural light. So I'm thinking something along the lines of, you know, maybe some sort of wood slat louvered system, maybe something similar to what I have going on over here, and really sort of just carrying that language and that form that steps up with the clear story windows, and just carrying that through.